Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. And welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. I'm your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, it's been too long since we talked some sports with you, so let's waste no more time. Hashtag ODPH if you're joining in on social media, because there's been some stories going on since our last episode.
Bryce Harper won the home run derby.
This is true. Baseball is on their second half of their season, but the NBA is still dominating the headlines.
So the NBA heard we were taking a week of sabbatical, a week at the beach, if you were, a week at the beach, sipping on some drinks. And they go, oh, hey, they're on vacation? Let's announce everything.
Exactly. I think there's some correlation there.
Say, because it happened a couple weeks ago with Boogie.
Yes, and now they've gone yet again and did it when we were on hiatus.
We're on to you, Adam Silver.
We're watching. Don't think we're not watching. But Kawhi Leonard is gone from San Antonio.
And smiling.
And he is now in Toronto.
He's riding through the six.
Thoughts on that, Pat?
I was shocked, to say the least. Granted, this wasn't like LeBron, where I had a handful of teams I thought he might go to, and then the Lakers weren't high on the list. Kawhi, I genuinely had no idea where he was going to go, because I hadn't been reading anything ruling out any teams. Nobody had really been ruled out. Outside of a team maybe going, yeah, we're not interested. Yeah, we don't really want him. So I was kind of open-minded about the whole thing, and then it came out Toronto, and I'm like, wait, Toronto? For who?
Toronto was a very big surprise, because I don't think that was on anybody's radar. For everybody who was following the Kawhi story, it was pretty much, oh, he's going to the Lakers. He has to join LeBron. And as we mentioned on the show, and I know I've talked about it at length, there was no way San Antonio was going to trade him to a rival in their own division.
I mean, if they got desperate in like 11th hour, they might.
Maybe, but that was going to be at the trade deadline next season.
I'll say that's the proverbial clock's ready to hit midnight and Cinderella's losing her slipper.
Exactly. There was no way that was going to happen.
No.
And for people to think that it was going to, you know what? It's nice to dream like that they were going to form a super team, but it's not going to happen this year.
No.
It's not to say that he might leave Toronto. We don't exactly know.
I say it's kind of the same position Paul George was in going into Oklahoma City last year.
Absolutely. That if you go there and it turns out to be a franchise that you feel that you can win and maybe capitalize on, you're going to stay put. Paul George is a perfect example of it, that he has unfinished business with Westbrook and company in Oklahoma City.
Yep.
That he doesn't want to join up with the winning team, or he doesn't want to, quote-unquote, go back home where he is going to be the second fiddle again to one LeBron James. That's not happening. He is staying put. So for Kawhi Leonard to go to Toronto obviously changes a lot of things in the East. Toronto is in a big shake-up mode. DeMar DeRozan was the player traded along with a few others to San Antonio, which is swapping All-Star for All-Star.
I'll say, boy, DeMar's IG story that day.
And I have to say, I give kudos to him, because for a player who, Toronto was always haunted by Cleveland and LeBron when they played in the East. He never complained. He never said, I wanted out.
Nope.
That he couldn't work and try making it happen.
He reminds me much of Danny Granger when he was with the Indiana Pacers. There for a lot of years, never really said bull, never complained, played the game.
Exactly. And he wrote a very personal letter to the fans of Toronto, which you don't see too much these days.
No.
A lot of times you'll see maybe a quick blurb, but from him, you could definitely tell his heart is in the six, and he did not want to go.
So you usually only see a heartfelt letter. Odds are it's probably posted in like a full-page spread of the local paper, usually when a player retires, not when they're leaving the team for another team.
No, and you can definitely tell he didn't want to go. I mean, he just re-signed with them not too long ago.
Yeah.
And he wants to win up in Toronto. So for him to be traded, it's very tough, especially if you're a Raptors fan. But you're getting Kawhi Leonard, who seems happier, as we have seen and heard a little bit.
He's smiling.
I mean, that's supposed to be very telling.
So that's a win right there.
Well, considering how messy the divorce was with San Antonio, and that had to be one of the weirdest ones on record.
Yeah, because I can't think of too many players who have played for a Hall of Fame coach. I know Popovich isn't in the Hall of Fame yet, but he will be.
Oh, he will be.
He will be.
No question.
I can't think of a player who played for Phil Jackson or any other Hall of Fame basketball coach that has been like, yeah, I don't want to play for you. Like, in my mind, I would think if I'm an NBA player and they go, hey, you're going to play under Greg Popovich, I'm like, yes, when? Give me my jersey now.
Absolutely. He has a proven track record of winning. I would say that if you're comparing apples to oranges, franchises to franchises, the San Antonio Spurs are run a lot like the New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. You have a great coach. They seem to get the best out of whatever players they bring into their system. You don't really hear of problems internally. It seems to be just one big machine that just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling.
And let's be real, he kept that team relevant and in the playoff hunt way longer than they should have been on paper.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you look at a late 30s, early 40s Tim Duncan, a late 30s, early 40s, Manu Ginobili, and an up there in age Tony Parker. You're thinking, yeah, they ain't going to get far. They're not even going to make the playoffs. But they did.
No, and that just shows how the system works there. That they're getting the most out of every player they have, and everybody knows their roles on the team, and they follow them through and through. And the success is just shown in the results.
Also, they must have the best training staff in the NBA.
Oh yeah, you'd never hear about any real long-term injuries. Albeit though, Kawhi's has been a very interesting X factor that, depends on what you read and what you hear and what you believe of the extent of it. But this is just one that you never heard a public statement from Kawhi saying he wanted out. You never heard of really any rumblings publicly from the Spurs organization saying we're trying to desperately move Kawhi. But I think in the long term, this is going to work for both teams. I think Kawhi can be a superstar. Not that he already wasn't, but he is going to be the big fish in the small pond of the Eastern Conference. Toronto, who was the number one seed last year, is now added an MVP-type caliber player, which is not to say DeRozan isn't on that level, but Kawhi has got more of a mystique to him going there. So, and especially with the transition with a new head coach, it's almost like they had to almost clean house in Toronto. Almost. It's a weird thing to look at from the outside in.
It's a weird situation when you were the number one seed in the East and you clean house.
Yeah, you don't really hear about it too much. But if you take a look at it, your Eastern Conference representatives in the finals, they've cleaned house and then some.
Yep.
So it's really weird to watch as a fan. But for Toronto, they're going to get Kawhi, who now has, if you're the Raptors, you need to build a team around him that can show him that he should stay instead of if he really does want to go to L.A. Now, I don't know necessarily what he's going to do, and I think the season is going to dictate a lot of that. But for me, just making my unofficial super early ODPH prediction, I think he's going to stay in the East. Whether it's with Toronto or not, to be determined. I don't see him joining up with LeBron in L.A.
No.
I don't. I just think that for him, he is just a different type of player that just doesn't really want that big of a spotlight. And to say that he could just be a big fish in the small pond in the East, I think that suits him better.
Yeah.
Now, does it mean that he won't move somewhere else? Hard to say, but we'll have to wait and see about that. San Antonio with DeRozan, though, I think is going to help them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And San Antonio is always in the contention talk. Always.
Oh, without a doubt.
So for him to go there and work with Popovich, it's bittersweet because you associate him so much as the face of the Raptors. But now in the Spurs, I think he can only flourish more. And And very few times you have a trade-off like this that works in both favors. So looking at that wasn't the only big move of the week. Carmelo Anthony is now poised to sign with the Houston Rockets after I wouldn't say it was a messy divorce with Oklahoma City, but it was weird. It's just awkward.
It was weird. They bought him out for $38 million, and he's going to sign a veteran's minimum for like $4 million and change. So he's going to make over $40 million this year from two teams.
Yeah.
It's just bonkers.
Sports economics is just a weird thing to study.
And the weird thing is I saw this online from an article from CBS News. With Carmelo Anthony signing with the Rockets, Sportsline is projecting Houston's chances of winning the championship to decrease, ladies and gentlemen. They had the Houston's chances of winning the championship at 4.8% before Carmelo Anthony signed. With Carmelo Anthony signing with the Houston Rockets, their chances are now 3.9%.
Well, the question is, I mean, obviously Carmelo is an all-star caliber player. No, there's no argument about that.
Yeah.
But for him and D'Antoni's system has already proven not to work out the best.
Yeah, he wasn't the biggest fan of it.
No. So now you're rejoining him with more shooters in Chris Paul and James Harden.
Who like to shoot the ball.
That like to shoot the ball. Is there enough basketball time on the floor for everybody to coexist and be productive?
On paper, and as I look at it right now, no.
No, it's just...
But then again, I'm not in that locker room. I'm not in that group text message they have going, I'm sure, where they're kind of talking to each other and convincing each other.
Well, that's what's going to have to be the telling tale. If they can work together and make it happen. Because now you still have a quote-unquote big three in Houston.
Right.
But is it enough to beat the Fab Five in Golden State?
No.
That's your benchmark. If you can't contend with those starting five in Golden State, it doesn't matter who you got on your team.
I'm saying they can't. They couldn't before. Adding Carmelo doesn't because, we know how Carmelo's defense is.
Exactly. You need somebody that could be a shutdown defensive player. Because if you can slow down Golden State, you have a chance to beat them. You're not going to shut them down.
No, and you're not going to outshoot them.
No, absolutely not. But for him to go there, and Houston is still missing a few more defensive players that could really help, but it doesn't really fit D'Antoni's offense. As we saw in the playoffs, Houston was close, but they didn't shut the door on Golden State.
No.
Golden State has only gotten better. They are still winning free agency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any major stars going out west to join up with LeBron and the Lakers yet. Not to say it's not going to happen. The East is still Boston and Philly. Toronto has made some moves on the radar.
So they might crash the party. You're an outside chance.
They might crash the party, but it's still going to be between Boston and Philly.
I still pencil Boston and Philly for the Eastern Conference Finals. I would, like I said, I would pencil in Toronto to really crash that party just because LeBron's no longer in the Eastern Conference. That proverbial roadblock is gone from them.
Absolutely. Well, with LeBron gone, there is a big void in the East. It is almost fair game for any team to contend there. But we all know Boston's going to be in there.
It's like Charlotte Hornets. Oh, wait.
Yeah, not realistic on paper.
So, hey, you said anybody.
But everybody has a shot. But it's just a realistic one to be determined. Because with the void left, there's Boston, Philly, and then you can definitely tell there's a drop-off.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say there won't be some moves happening, and especially if the Knicks can somehow acquire a couple free agents. We still know Kyrie Irving is still rumored to not be re-signing with Boston, and he wants to go to New York. So if him and Porzingis can get together,
that'd be crazy.
And maybe one other player, then you might have a new contender in the East.
Yeah.
Would you happen to have next seasons for free agents looking more to jump to the East and get out of the Western Conference?
I think based off of how this season goes, if you have like we think is going to happen where Golden State is just absolutely going to run the table and it's going to be over for the number one seed and everything else by like the All-Star break, you'll start seeing some guys jump for the East.
It would make more sense too, because for more parity in the league and just for overall more competitiveness and as a fan to watch more better games, you really want to see the Eastern Conference have an equal standing to the West.
Yeah.
Because right now it's so Western Conference heavy. The East, like we said, there's only two teams worth talking about.
Let's say if we're balancing both conferences on a balance beam, the balance beam is rather heavily on the Western Conference's side to the point that this balance beam is breaking.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, all eyes are going to be on Golden State too, even with the moves that have happened with San Antonio and Carmelo joining in Houston.
Oh, if Golden State doesn't win the whole darn thing, they're not going to hear the end of this ever.
Either one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to combust with Boogie on that team, and it's just going to be too many All-Stars in one room, or they're going to put on one of the most legendary seasons you've ever seen.
Yeah. And, of course, the other news that came out today as we record was Kevin Love re-signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers for 4 years and $120 million.
Not really surprised by that. I mean,
I'm surprised by the years and dollar amount.
Well, the years and the dollars maybe, but I'm not really shocked that he re-signed.
I'll say I'm not shocked he re-signed simply because I know there was talk of him getting traded. Whether that was true or not, who's to say?
Yes.
But to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm not surprised he re-signed simply because, like I said, the trade rumors were always there. He never went anywhere. So him re-signing doesn't exactly surprise me. But it is surprising that you look back at that team and what it used to be. Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love. And who would have, if you go back in time and tell your past self, Kevin Love is going to outlast LeBron James and Kyrie Irving on this team. Your past self is going to tell you you're nuts.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to watch this offseason and going into the regular season. But let us know what you think of the big moves. What do you think about Kawhi going to Toronto? We want to know. Hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Coming back for segment number 2 on the flagship show, we are talking NFL now.
We are getting close to the season.
Absolutely. The Hall of Fame game in Canton is going to be next week.
Mm-hmm.
So that is usually the time that everybody is officially in football mode.
I'll say if memory serves, teams are reporting for training camps, and at least rookies are.
Yes, rookies are at camp now, and by the end of the week as we are recording, all teams will be reporting to camp.
Okay.
So teams are definitely going to have their own share of storylines. Albeit, though, I think the one that has been dominating the summer in, I want to say the wrong reasons.
Rob Gronkowski swimming with sharks.
Well, there is that. But I was going...
Side note, Aaron Rodgers as well.
Yes. I'm going to go with Le'Veon Bell and the Pittsburgh Steelers not being able to re-sign.
Let's say we were talking about messy divorces and breakups the last segment. This could very well be the next one.
Boy, I tell you, this is just one of the more puzzling ones on paper because the Steelers have been trying to re-sign Le'Veon to a long-term deal that now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. He's going to play out this season and then become a free agent. And this is now coming off the heels of Todd Gurley signing with L.A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for 4 years, $60 million, 45 of it guaranteed.
That is incredible.
Ooh.
That is an incredible contract. Saquon Barkley from the Giants also just got a guaranteed rookie contract too, with $31 million guaranteed for the rookies.
Yeah, and of course this all ties back into Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, not one to miss the news on Todd Gurley signing this monster contract. He tweeted out, "LOL, and y'all thought I was tripping."
He has an argument.
Thing of it is, though, and I was speaking to a Pittsburgh Steelers fan the other day about this. When's the last time you saw Pittsburgh give a big money contract to anybody in their franchise history? They're much like the New England Patriots. You look at the New England Patriots when they traded away Chandler Jones after his sophomore season or whatever it was. And everyone's like, why are you trading one of the best defensive ends in the NFL away? Because he was coming up on a contract year and he was going to want monster numbers. And look at what he got in Arizona. Mm-hmm. You know, and justifiably so. But when is the last time you saw New England give a monster contract? Never. When's the last time you saw Pittsburgh give a monster contract?
No, they usually don't. I mean, those franchises are historically known for not really breaking the bank. I mean, they will spend on free agents and they will spend on re-signing. But in this case, no, you don't really hear about them going and dumping a good chunk of their salary cap into one player. It just typically doesn't happen.
I'll say, because this isn't like the NBA where you can overspend and spend money on anybody for any amount and you just pay a tax. No, once you hit that cap, you're capped.
Yeah, you're capped, and you really don't have a lot of flexibility, especially when you're trying to re-sign players on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a simple 10 or 11 man sport. It's a 45 plus.
Yes. And I mean, they have had some very generous contracts. I mean, the one thing with the franchise tag, though, you do get paid a percentage of the highest player at the position.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, though, for the Steelers, are they going to be able to really progress this season if Le'Veon Bell sits out? Because it's been rumored now that there has been talk about him sitting, and he's not going to want to report to camp. He does have an argument with this. If players that, I mean, if you look at Barkley's case with the Giants, he hasn't even played it down and look at how much he's getting paid. And then you take a look at Gurley, who's had great numbers, don't get me wrong, but have they been able, if you're comparing Bell to Gurley, it's right there. So how can you argue that?
Well, if Bell does end up sitting out the season and not playing a good portion of the season, Pittsburgh better invest in like a hamster ball type thing for Antonio Brown, since he was named the Madden cover athlete, and the jinx that typically goes with that.
Yes, this is true. Antonio Brown was named the cover to Madden 19 coming out, and that usually does not bear well for any team that
Yeah,
has that
like
player
I
on
know
the
I
cover.
know there was a break last year with Brady being on it, and yeah, he had his bumps and bruises, but it's not like the one year was Troy Polamalu and he broke his leg, I think, or something like that. Or years past where like there was a string of years consecutive where the cover athlete got injured. So
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch. I mean, and Pittsburgh is not known to have these headlines on them.
no,
This is very untypical of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't even remember the really last time they've had an issue like this. Maybe with Plexico Burress in the contracts situation.
maybe.
Don't 100% quote me on that. I'm just trying to remember of any time that there was a player that they couldn't re-sign. But this is a whole different element, though.
Right.
With Bell, I mean, this has been going on for a couple seasons, but he has been putting up consistent numbers.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what you're really thinking.
Super dependable back.
Yeah, when he's been on the field, he has shown up. So, and he's been now, dare I say, between him and Antonio Brown, you have arguably the best running back and wide receiver combo in the NFL.
It's the best 1-2 punch in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Are you willing to sacrifice that, over a contract? Now, granted, the Steelers have made him some great offers that they just haven't been able to agree on. So now it's really going to be telling. I mean, that's one of the biggest stories that's going to be going on in training camp. Does Le'Veon Bell show up now? And especially with Gurley signing, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, he has a right to sit out if he wants to, but long term, how is this going to affect the team? Because if he's not on the field, let's say the first 4 games of the year, and let's say they go 1-3, hypothetically, that is usually not boding well for their chances to get to the playoffs.
No, a little hard to make the playoffs when you start 1-3. Of course, and if he does end up leaving the team at the end of the season, if your team needs a running back, like I know New England's got a couple good running backs, but if they got the opportunity to get Le'Veon Bell, go for him. I'll send a letterhead.
Oh, it'll be one of the most highly sought after free agents on the market.
Mm-hmm.
If he makes it to the free agency market, he will be arguably the highest paid player of the free agency class next year.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not even going to be up for debate. That's how much he impacts the team. Now, the only other argument you can make is, okay, he works well in the Steelers system.
Mm-hmm.
Will he be able to reproduce this for another team that doesn't have a great line like they do?
Unless the offensive system is like apples to oranges, like it's complete opposite of what he's used to in Pittsburgh, I think he'll do well.
He should be able to. I mean, it just depends on where he wants to go and what gives him the best chance to win. Because if he doesn't have that where he goes and the line is not that good that allows him to do his different style cuts that he does when he goes through the line, because he does have almost like a delayed reaction, then he explodes through the hole. If they don't give him the opportunity to do that, is he going to be as successful? Now, Pittsburgh has been great about getting a scheme to him and being able to make it work with his system. If they can redo this with another team, then I think he flourishes. But I think for Pittsburgh, they have to come to some agreement about, okay, what is it going to take to get you back? And they have to focus in on that. Because if they don't, I think they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I think the only other story that's kind of intriguing to me as we sit here in late July, almost August, Des Bryant still doesn't have a team.
That is very telling.
Because there are a lot of teams that have an okay receiver core. Mm-hmm. They could use, maybe a slot receiver or a deep threat, and they'll be good. But it surprises me that you're not even really hearing rumors of teams reaching out to him.
The only 2 teams that I've heard, I mean, he has been tagged, let me rephrase that. He's been tagged to 3 teams. Mm-hmm. But the 2 strongest that I've heard is Seattle and New England.
Both of which would be interesting.
Which would be interesting for various levels. Green Bay was in the conversation, but that has kind of cooled off lately.
Right.
I haven't heard too much about that. But it would make sense, especially Jordy Nelson now in Oakland. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers needs somebody to throw to. Dez, if he's on the field and can, duplicate the magic he had in Dallas, it'd be a great move. I just don't know if that's there or not in Green Bay. Because with Aaron Rodgers, he throws to everybody.
Right. So
the impact of not having a quote-unquote number 1 receiver isn't going to matter as much. And if they did have a Des Bryant, Des would be looking for the ball all the time.
Right.
Which is like most number 1 receivers.
I say, because when you're a receiver for Aaron Rodgers, running a squiggly line on the field, Rodgers will get it to you.
Yeah, he will get it to you, and then you go from there. With him going to another team, Des Bryant, I don't know what would be the best fit, because if he goes to the Patriots, it's the same scenario that you would have with the Packers. Brady does not have a number one. Brady
has lost his deep threat in Brandon Cooks leaving.
Yes.
And yes, Dez does have his history. Dez does have his issues on the sidelines, but it's not so different in when Randy Moss came over, because I remember when Randy Moss signed, everyone's like, oh boy, how are they going to deal with this? All the issues with Randy Moss, and look how that worked out.
Well, Randy is a very student of the game. He's a very big student of the game. And Dez is too, but Dez, I guess, comes in with just a lot of different variables to him. Sometimes people don't think that he's on that number one level, like he's a number two. He has shown number one ability as in the wide receiver position. I think if he did go to Seattle, I think that would help. But with him and Doug Baldwin, that's your 1-2 combo.
Right.
So it would make sense for him to go there. If he goes anywhere else, I don't know. I would think he'd be a better fit in Baltimore.
Right.
To be honest with you, that's where I think he should go. I don't know if he's going to.
I know I'm biased when I say this, but him in New England, now that I think about it, is a rather interesting scenario, because on that, assuming everyone's healthy, who do you double team on that offensive line? Do you double team Julian Edelman, the squirrel? Do you double team Gronkowski, or do you double team Dez?
Well, I mean, that's going to be nightmares for any defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
To add Dez Bryant on the field to whatever team you're going to add him to, I think is going to definitely give a different component to defensive coordinators. But you have to think, what would make the most sense for Dez to get the ball as much as he wants, and what team desperately needs a number one?
Right.
Like I said, Baltimore for me makes sense. I would even go out on a limb and say Chicago.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Because I know they've retooled their offense, but if you had Dez Bryant for Trubisky there, you have a rookie quarterback that has a number one target.
Right.
That can only help him.
And a lot of upside in front of him.
There's a lot of upside in front of him. So there has been some stories going on for NFL training camp. Like we said, everybody's reporting to camp by the end of this week, and then we go to the Hall of Fame game next week. So football is definitely getting back in season. But let us know what you think. What do you think are the biggest headlines of the NFL training camp season thus far? We want to know. Hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this week's ODPH, and there is some UFC action going on this weekend. Free on Fox. They have a stacked card for this one.
Go on.
Now, the 3 big fights that are jumping out at me about this card. The one and only Joanna Jędrzejczyk is returning to strawweight, and she is going to be fighting Tecia Torres.
Ooh,
now,
okay.
that is a very, very good strawweight fight.
Yep.
I'm super excited about that. Jędrzejczyk, the former champion until Rose Namajunas has defeated her the last couple of fights, is coming back. And if Tecia Torres is going to make a real run for the belt, you have to go through Joanna. Thoughts on this one, Pat?
Boy, that one has got my interest.
Oh, man. Jędrzejczyk is a primetime fighter. She is amazing to watch in the cage. And I know her fights against Rose definitely were very short. Rose just did not buy into the mystique.
Right.
Because Jędrzejczyk had kind of a Ronda Rousey mystique.
Yeah.
Until there. I mean, she would just pick opponents apart. And she is definitely one that I think other fighters were very scared of in that division. To a degree.
Yeah.
But Rose came in there, didn't show any fear, and took her out. So now Jędrzejczyk is climbing back into the title contention. Torres is definitely going to bring the fight to her.
So this ain't going to be no slouch fight.
No, definitely not. This is going to be a highly contested bout. I do like Jędrzejczyk in it, though. I think that she has something to prove, and I think she's going to want to make a statement in primetime.
So yeah, she's definitely got a chip on her shoulder.
Absolutely. And this can only propel her to get in that third match against Rose. Albeit, though, I don't know if it's going to happen right away if she should win. But if Torres does, you got to throw her name in contention.
Absolutely.
And then going into the co-main event, Jose Aldo versus Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens.
Ooh, okay.
Now, this one is going to go one of two ways, in my opinion. if Jeremy Stephens can withstand leg kicks, he is going to knock out Jose Aldo.
Yup.
If Jose can withstand the punching power early and the wrestling of Stephens, he's going to make this into a very long night for Jeremy Stephens.
I'm predicting Jose Aldo is going to kick Stephens' leg off, and it's going to look like something out of a medical TV show after it's said and done.
Well, the one thing that's been very puzzling to me anyway is I thought after his losses to Holloway, Aldo would move up to 155.
Right.
He just something about his last couple fights, and I don't know if it's more of a difficult weight cut now.
Maybe.
But I think for him at featherweight, I don't want to say the time has passed because arguably he is the greatest featherweight in the UFC's history.
Yeah.
Arguably. So it's at this point, though, he's lost a couple to Max Holloway. He's going to try going for the belt one more time. For me, I think it'd be a smarter move for him to move up to 155.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him up there. Imagine some of the bouts you could put him in there.
Right. I mean, the only thing I can think is maybe he's just reaching that point in his life where his body's simply not cutting down like it should or like it used to.
It could be.
You know, the old adage, father time.
Father time is definitely one that impacts every single person on this planet. So if it's affecting Aldo, I mean, which it quite possibly could, then I could definitely see where this is going to be an issue. And especially going back for the title and making a run at 145, which has become very competitive over the last few years. This is going to be one that's going to definitely get somebody into a contender title match, if not discussion, very, very, very quickly. But I do think that Stephens has got a chance to win this, but he has to withstand some leg kicks.
So he's got to withstand a lot of leg kicks.
He does, but for him, because he's been calling out everybody at 145, and rightfully so. He's been on a heck of a run lately. This is the type of fight that he needs to make a statement win. Now, do I think his grappling and wrestling will help him? Yeah, I think so. I think he's got a slight edge there over Aldo, but
so you can't kick a man if you got him on his back on the octagon.
But I think for him, he's going to want to knock him out. I think he wants to. This one is going to have a highlight reel finish, no matter who wins. So that being said, boy, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to go against Aldo at 145 unless you're fighting Max Holloway. So if I have to choose, I'm going to say this. I wouldn't doubt Stephens' win. I really wouldn't, but I'm going to take Aldo. Just because I think his experience at this, and plus I think he's going in this arguably with more to lose.
Yeah.
Because if he loses to Stephens, I don't want to say his shot at the 145 title is done.
It's a little more in doubt, though.
But it's a little more in question. And for being his legacy at 145 to magically the door get slammed shut, this is a little more for him to really lose, in my opinion.
Right.
Stephens has everything to gain, but as long as there isn't like a 10-second knockout,
right,
I don't think any fighter is going to be, really in bad condition after this. I really don't. But I do think Aldo is going to sneak the win out, but I think Stephens could win this. I think if Stephens definitely can throw some hands, and if he can take him into deeper rounds, that's the true telling point. As far as I know, this is not a 5-round fight. This is going to be a 3-round fight. So if he can take him to the third, he's got a chance. Or unless he can knock him out sooner. That's really how you beat Jose Aldo.
Right.
But for Aldo, he's the more desperate fighter, in my opinion. He's going to want to pull this win out. Then we get to the main event, which I know we've mentioned a lot of times. Don't blink. You're going to see fireworks. You're going to see action. You're going to see a lot of heavy hands getting thrown. Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier at 155.
Oh, Lord.
If I'm not mistaken, this is Alvarez's last contracted fight for the UFC right now.
Oh, wow.
So if he wins, he's putting a lot of pressure on the UFC to re-sign him. I think he is going to re-sign.
I would imagine so.
But you never know. For Poirier, this is going to put him in the title contention talk at 155 if he wins. Now, this one is going to go back and forth. I tell you what, if you want to see a great fight, and to me, both of these guys are going to be bringing, I don't want to say almost like an equal game, but there really isn't any glaring holes on either fighter.
No.
That there's one that is going to outlast the other. I think you're going to go in there and you're going to see some hands getting thrown. But then the question goes, Pad, Who does this benefit more for the win, Poirier or Alvarez?
Poirier, because if he wins, like you said, if he wins, it puts him in title contention. It's one of those things that he needs that one fight to kind of vault him into that conversation. And if he gets a stellar, impressive knockout win, that's going to immediately vault him into that conversation. He'll start calling people out.
Oh, he's already called people out, and rightfully so. Poirier is one of the most entertaining fighters that I don't think a lot of mainstream fans know about.
No.
But if you've seen his body of work, and he's fought everybody they've thrown at him, I don't think he's ever backed down from anybody.
Nothing comes to mind for me.
No, he's going to show up there, and him at 155 is a better weight for him than 145. I think at 145 it took too much from him. But him at 155, and he has shown he can hang up there. I think this fight, though, if Alvarez wants that big contract to re-sign, and arguably I think this would be his final MMA contract, I think UFC would lock him up long term. I think Alvarez is going to want to say, I'm going to make a statement, I'm going to get this win, and then you're going to have to start talking Conor money.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, everybody wants to talk Conor McGregor money.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody's going to get paid Conor McGregor money.
No.
But I think he's going to have a very valid argument. So if I have to make my unofficial ODPH prediction, I am taking Alvarez. Albeit, though, this one is just going to be fun as a fight fan to watch. And I don't think you're going to see a Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis.
Yeah, that crossed my mind.
You will not see that. If there's one thing I can say is a lock, you will not see that in this fight. These guys will definitely be swinging. You might see more takedowns.
Right.
Just to throw the other opponent off.
But it won't be a ballroom dance for 30 minutes.
You're not going to see anybody dancing around in this one. This one is going to be a stand-up, knockdown. Somebody is going to get stopped. There's going to be a stoppage of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it's going to be Alvarez. I'm going to say it's going to be late, 4th round, maybe 5th.
Okay.
That's how far. Because I take nothing away from Poirier. Because Poirier can win this fight. I just think Alvarez is going to want to make that final fight that you can't let me go to Bellator. You can't let me go to another organization. This is what I can do. I've just defeated one of your top guys. What now? For Poirier, though, he has a lot to lose on this too, but I think if he can put up an impressive showing, it's not going to hurt him in any way. So this is going to be a very fun fight card to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we did have some late-breaking news as we were going to record today.
No, yeah, a couple of interesting future fight card matches were announced. Yoel Romero versus Paulo Costa was booked for the November card, that being UFC 230 at Madison Square Garden.
That's going to be a big one. Romero and Costa. Paulo had a great outing on his last fight. Mm-hmm. This really is going to be a test for him, and I believe they're fighting at middleweight.
Yep.
For Romero, he desperately needs this win. This is going to be a telling fight for both fighters.
Yep.
Very telling. And I believe that this one, they are trying to sign Rockhold and Chris Weidman.
Yep.
So there's going to be a lot of middleweight action going on in this card.
Oh, it's looking on good already.
Yes. I mean, definitely excited for this card if they sign both fights. But Romero and Costa is going to be, that's going to be something. I like Costa in that one, to be honest with you.
Yep. And then the one breaking just a couple minutes ago, they're working on Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till for the welterweight title. Very close to being finalized, according to ESPN's Ariel Helwani. The fight would be UFC 228 in September.
You know, I'm kind of torn on this because one thing I don't understand is what is going on that we're seeing a lot more interim title belts at welterweight because Covington was hurt, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's how or let me rephrase this. Woodley was hurt, but we didn't know the extent of it.
Right.
And that's where Covington had his interim belt against RDS.
Yep.
Or RDA, I'm sorry. So now Covington's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're having your interim title get defended against Woodley against Till, or
well, if it sounds like if the Till Woodley fight goes down, it's being reported by Helwani that it's going to be for the title. So it sounds like ergo, if this fight is made, Covington's stripped of the interim belt,
and that makes sense, I guess.
Because the thing of it is the thing we know from history. For various reasons, be it injury or other reasons, you don't want to get... I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to avoid another Conor McGregor-like situation where Obviously, the circumstances are different. They're not going to be exactly the same, but you don't want to tie up a division for a year plus because of whatever reason it is, be it injury or other ventures.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to. I'm just curious of the extent of said injury because I did not even hear until we started recording today that Covington was injured. And I think that that's the fight you want if you're a fan of the welterweight division, and especially if you like trash talk.
Oh, yeah.
Because Covington and Woodley have been exchanging quite a colorful barrage, if I may use that language.
Yeah, go search some news articles. You'll find what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not going to be mentioning that on air, but
if you enjoy colorful commentary, you'll enjoy that.
yes, because there has been a lot of back and forth between both fighters. So I'm waiting to kind of see that play out. I'd love to see that in the cage, but I'm just curious of the extent of both of the injuries because it sounded like Woodley's wasn't. I don't think that's serious that he was going to miss like an extended amount of time. Like I know Robert Whitaker is injured for middleweight,
right?
But for the welterweight title, I didn't know the extent of it. It just sounded like it was going to be a couple extra months.
Maybe it's just a case of they just want to get it done and settled with now. Like we'll sort out all the matches that we want to get done down the road, but Lord have mercy, we just want to get this title situation sorted.
It could make sense. I mean, Woodley and Till is going to be an interesting fight if they can sign that. I do like Woodley in that. I mean, Till has been on a heck of a roll, albeit though he missed weight last fight. And I'm always kind of a stickler if you miss weight about getting a title shot like right after. But I do like Woodley in that. And plus, the big money fight for that is Woodley and Covington.
Let me see, because the other thing of it is to me, at least on the surface, it feels like this has been Dana's last year of his life is dealing with title issues.
Exactly. But when you have a precedent like with McGregor not defending your belt for however long because he was boxing and such, there has to be kind of an institution set up for the UFC where if your fighter does not fight for said reason for 120 days,
that was
4
the
months,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
However you want to determine it, there's got to be kind of some precedent set.
Right, and obviously the precedent would depend on what the circumstances is. If it's a case like the guy's got a broken leg, okay, that's going to be a little longer than 4 months.
Right.
But if it's a situation where like, okay, I got a broken hand. Okay, I'll be back in, we'll just say 3 months. Okay, if after 3 months, all right, you ready to go? No? Belt.
Something like that. I mean, I don't know if there's a good medium to set for it, but there has to be kind of some talk about this because there's always just an interim title. And I mean, Woodley did win the first title, so I guess Covington having the interim. I mean, it's honestly so confusing.
Yeah.
That when they're kind of saying, okay, who's the champion? And it's just, I have to go fact search. I mean, that shouldn't be for any belts, but I mean, there's just so much going on with the UFC too, and I mean, especially more injuries happening. Gustafson's off the next pay-per-view too, and I know that everybody was saying Anthony Smith was going to get thrown in there after his, straight up decimation of Shogun Rua.
Right.
That was one of the most brutal things I've seen lately. But it's nice to see that there's some new faces emerging at 205, and hopefully that fight can happen down the road, maybe. We'll see. But there is so much action going on, especially this weekend on Fox, so check your local listings and check out that card. Let us know what you think of the card. Hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break, come back with a local minute. See you then.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for the local minute on this week's ODPH, and some very sad news for the Binghamton Rumble Ponies.
I know this put you down.
This was deflating for me. Tim Tebow is out for the season with a broken hand.
On a fluke injury, too, just simply swinging the bat.
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever really hear about that happening.
No, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind of freaky injuries was when Manny Ramirez was with the Dodgers, I believe it was. And he was going into the trainer's room to, I think it was just get a simple massage. He just needed a massage. And he stubbed his toe and was out for like 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, anytime like that happens, I mean, the only one I can really think of is when I believe it was Kendry Morales was hitting the home run and broke his leg jump and celebrating.
Yes.
That's the only thing I can relate it to to some degree. It's just, sad to hear like an injury like that happens. And, where do you go from there?
Right. It's just been a bad week for the Mets overall. I mean, you look at the Tim Tebow situation, because I know there was talk and rumor of calling him up for September call-ups. And then you had Noah Syndergaard going down with hand, foot, and mouth disease, which that's just odd in and of itself. And then you have Yoenis Cespedes going on the 10-day DL with a heel issue I guess he's been dealing with the past 15 years of his life. It's not a good week for the Mets.
No, it definitely isn't. The Roman Ponies have been putting up some consistent games. I mean, but very back and forth. I mean, they split the series with Trenton going this weekend. Pat and I were down at the game on Friday night, albeit, though, that was probably the roughest one for the Ponies.
Yeah, I mean, first inning, the Trenton Thunder put up a 4 spot.
Yeah, anytime a game is starting like that is usually not going to side in the favor of your team that you're rooting for. But the Ponies did bounce back. I mean, they won 3-2 on Thursday. Friday, as we said, they lost 10-3. Saturday, they were winners 4-2 against Trenton. And Sunday, they lost 9-2. And they're currently at Bowie playing right now, and they have a couple games going against them. So even without Tim Tebow, definitely get down to the stadium.
Yeah.
Check out the Ponies while they're playing. BingRP.com for more ticket and Ponies information. So, Pat, let's start rounding those bases. I will lead us off. The biggest offseason, speaking of baseball, the biggest offseason move, or in-season move, should I say. I'm so used to saying offseason because we talk NBA so much. Manny Machado leaving Baltimore to join the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, and the story behind this one is a little odd, I'd say, because if you remember, if you were watching the All-Star game, you knew that they were asking him, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Like he knows. And he told them no. Well, then the story comes out that he knew he was going to be traded, but he didn't know where until later in the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the things with baseball, and especially seeing a franchise guy such as Machado leave Baltimore. Even as Yankee fans, I always hate seeing when like a franchise guy leaves an organization.
Right.
I'll even say when it's Boston, too, because I like seeing teams be competitive. I don't like seeing a 1-2 team race. I just never have. I mean, especially it's always the Yankees and the Red Sox in the AL East.
Well, for a number of years it was, and then it wasn't, and now it appears to be again.
It appears to be again, and there's still going to be some moves left to be made. But with Baltimore, they look like they're in a rebuilding mode. I mean, I know Adam Jones is still there as we're recording, but I suspect that he might be traded before it's all said and done.
There's talk they're going to trade Zach Britton.
They're just going to be revamping that entire team, and that's tough because, I mean, we do have a lot of Baltimore listeners, too, that I definitely want to hear from them about it, hashtag ODPH. But seeing Machado go out west, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The Dodgers are going to make a run going into the playoffs there, too, and, I mean, the NL is really wide open right now.
Oh, yeah.
So there really isn't, a clear-cut favorite to get into the playoffs, but LA is making the right moves, and Adam Machado, especially if they can sign him long-term. If they can't get him long-term, that's going to be the trick, because I've heard a lot of talk that he's very interested in joining the Phillies. If that is the case, that's only going to help them.
Trust in the process.
But I think with him going to LA, I don't think they would have traded as much as they did for him.
No.
Without thinking they were going to be able to re-sign him. And for Machado being out there, that can only help that team. I mean, that team is so young and they're on the rise that the Dodgers look like they're going to make a definite run for the next few years.
I'll say, because, of course, the rumor was, despite all the teams that were rumored in the talks, because it changed on the daily who was the favorite to land Machado. The one thing you always heard was that Baltimore was asking for a king's ransom. So clearly the Dodgers had no issue with that fee.
No, because if you're going to get an MVP type caliber player that you're not going to break the bank on, a la Bryce Harper and his contract, rumored, expectations. This is a smart move. I don't really struggle with it. Baltimore has a lot of young talent now to rebuild with. And Machado is in a good place to contend every year now with LA. I mean, I'm just, as a Yankee fan, I'm just glad we didn't decide to go crazy and try to trade for him.
Yeah, I was too.
Because there was a lot of talk of revamping, albeit though we didn't really need him.
No.
They
have other focuses, third base not being, or shortstop not being one of them.
No, that's definitely not one that needs. I mean, they definitely needed maybe a starting pitcher, and the catching situation, I guess. Yeah, that's become a very hot topic lately.
Yeah, of course. Switching to my thing last night, as the New York Yankees were playing the Tampa Bay Rays, they were the back and forth with the Rays, and then you get to the the top of the ninth inning, and they had runners on and 2 men out, and Gary Sanchez is coming to the plate, who just came off the DL from his groin injury he suffered before the All-Star break. And, here's an opportunity for Gary to, get a base hit and really come in clutch. And he hits the ball, hits it to short. The shortstop flips it to the second baseman, but it's too late. Runner safe. The second baseman has the wherewithal to realize, oh, I still have a chance, throws the ball to first, out. So then we're like, okay, but then the video comes out that Gary wasn't busting it down to first base. And you're like, all right. And he was even saying, in quotes after the game, that he'd be very surprised if he was in the lineup tonight, given how his performance at the end of the game. Like, he was being very upfront and professional about it. And Aaron Boone was being very professional and really not commenting.
Well, it's smart not to, because obviously if Sanchez is owning up to not hustling for whatever reason, then fine. Then the next time you're in that lineup and you are quote-unquote healthy, you play to win the game.
But there's a slight asterisk. It's not that he wasn't hustling through any whatever he had going through his mind. He re-aggravated his groin injury and was playing through the game with that re-aggravated groin injury. With that in mind, I'm not excusing it, but I'm like, all right, that makes slightly more sense than you just chose to not run down to first.
But if you are that hurt that you can't, I understand if you're playing through pain, I get that. But this is the same groin injury that had you sidelined for how many weeks now?
A couple. Then
you need to go to Aaron Boone and say, I just got re-injured.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to put somebody else in.
Right. I mean, it's that old adage, though, that, you heard with Jeter and you heard with, guys back in the 90s that they could be playing with a broken leg and they wouldn't tell you.
Well, I understand that, and I get that. But if you're hurting your team by being out there, that's where you need to make the call. And there's no shame in saying, okay, I just went out and I re-hurt, and I can't help my team. But if you're in that situation and you're in the position to win the game or at least tie it in the bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth, whatever, okay, that's when you got to be like, okay, you got to make a call. Mm-hmm. And you have to decide it for yourself. So, I mean, if you really are that hurt, then you got to go out. But you can't – I don't want to say you can't say it after the game, but it really doesn't help your case.
Right. And, of course, we are at the little past the midway point. So where are we sitting in baseball? Well, this is where a lot of people start paying attention. A few more people start kind of tuning in. Looking at the standings as we record, Boston is in first place in the American League East with a 71-31 record. They have a 6-game lead on our beloved New York Yankees. Looking at the American League Central, you have the Cleveland Indians in first place with a record of 54-45. They have a 8.5-game lead above the Minnesota Twins. Out west, you've got the Houston Astros with a 66-36 record with a 5-game lead above the Seattle Mariners. Switching to the National League, this has got to be one of the more interesting races in baseball, and I'm going out on a limb. This is my leap or lock, whatever you want to look at it. This race will come down to the final. You see this every year. There's at least one game, one division that gets decided on the final game of the year.
Yep.
This is going to be the division that gets decided on the final game of the year. You've got the Philadelphia Phillies in first place in the National League East with a record of 55-44. You've got the Atlanta Braves in second place with a half game behind, percentage-wise, with a record of 54-44. So I'm just going out on a limb. That's going down to the last game of the year.
And it's good to see the Phillies have bounced back. I know they've been off the past couple of years, but now they're contending. And I mean, the NL East is going to get interesting. I know Washington is having their struggles, and I almost wonder if the whole Bryce Harper contract thing is playing a factor into it.
Yeah, maybe. I think the interesting thing with them isn't Bryce Harper. I think it was the other night when Steven Strasburg came back from injury to make his return. Got pulled from the game after a less than stellar outing, and then started to get into a shouting match with Max Scherzer, who then they had the wherewithal to take it into the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're seeing that, that's such not a good look.
I'll say, because this wasn't they're arguing about the flavor of the Gatorade in the cooler.
No, and when you're seeing stuff like this happen, it usually leads to more trouble down the road. So. That's going to be something to maybe keep an eye on, but I hate seeing that with teams. But you got to give kudos to the Phillies. I mean, they came back when I know a lot of people didn't have them projected for getting this far.
No, and then looking at the NL Central, you've got the Chicago Cubs in first place with a 58-41 record and a 2.5-game lead on the Milwaukee Brewers. And then out west, you've got the LA Dodgers in first place with a 56-44 record and a 1.5-game lead above the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then looking at the wild card, Your current first place leader in the American League wild card is the New York Yankees. Second place is the Seattle Mariners, 2.5 games above the Oakland Athletics. And then switching over to the National League, the Milwaukee Brewers have the first place spot for the wild card. The Atlanta Braves in second place. And then they are a half game up on the Arizona Diamondbacks for that place.
There's a lot going on with baseball. It's getting exciting to start watching. So if you haven't been watching lately, now's the time to jump into it, whether you're at the minor leagues or the majors.
And I'm making a trip down again this year with my brother, like I did last year, going in early September to see him play the Detroit Tigers.
Oh, that'll be a fun time for you.
Yeah, well, haven't seen him play the Tigers before, so it's something new.
Definitely something new, and anytime you can go see sports live, it's always a great time.
And I always love going to Yankee Stadium because no matter how many times I go, I grin from ear to ear like I'm a kid on Christmas.
Hey, if your team is a historic franchise such as the Yankees, you're going to be doing that every time you walk in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's an expansion team, if it's the first time, like if you're going to the Vegas Golden Knights game.
Yeah.
It's the first experience you get that gets you hooked into sports.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that just never lets you go. That's all we got for this week. So for Padawan J,
thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time.